Good afternoon. My name is Brittany Mentel, and today I'll be talking about the Gradual Release of Responsibility teaching framework while teaching a lesson on single-digit multiplication. Throughout the lesson, I will be incorporating different learning strategies such as cues and questioning, summarizing and note-taking, non-linguistic representation, advanced organizers, cooperative learning, providing feedback, and positive reinforcement. To begin, I'd like to identify several different PA academic standards for mathematics that we will be focusing on throughout the lesson. Students will develop fluency in the use of basic facts for the 4 operations. Students will multiply single and double-digit numbers and divide by single-digit numbers. Students will represent equivalent forms of the same whole number, the same fraction, or the same decimal through the use of concrete objects, drawings, word names, and symbols. In addition, I would like to ask students to create their own personal goals for the unit on multiplication. The Gradual Release of Responsibility framework follows these simple guidelines. First, you should identify a topic or a theme, which in this case is single-digit multiplication. Next, you should identify the PA academic standards that go along with it. Next, you should identify the essential question. What is it that you want the students to learn? Next, it's good to make a literacy connection. After that, you should provide the students with a focus lesson or direct instruction of the topic being taught. Next, you should move on to guided instruction, which includes whole group and small group instruction. Afterwards, provide the students with an opportunity for collaborative learning and provide other concurrent activities. In addition, you should also provide independent practice with conferences. Students should be asked to practice certain tasks on their own, and then afterwards, you should provide a student-teacher conferencing session. In the end, students should be assessed in both formative and summative ways. The essential question for this lesson is how can we use multiplication to show repeated addition? When beginning the focus lesson for multiplication, teachers could introduce the topic as repeated addition. Ask students questions such as, what does repeated addition mean? Why would we use repeated addition? And can you give me an example of when we would use repeated addition? These are open-ended questions to determine how much students already know. This use of cues and questionings will give you a good background of what the students already know. Afterwards, model the concept of repeated addition on the board. Explain to the students that instead of adding 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, we could simply say that we have 4 equal groups of 3. As a continuation of the focus lesson, the teacher could read the story, Corkscrew Counts. In this story, the kids want to play games. However, every game they try to play needs a different number of players, and they never have the right amount. Corkscrew the pig and his parrot friend know how to solve problems, if only they could get the kids to understand. This book gives a good background on multiplication. Now it is time to begin our guided instruction as a whole group. The teacher will provide students with a pre-made book with 12 pages. On the cover page, students will write the title, Multiplication Facts. They can decorate it as creatively as they wish. On the first page, students will summarize and take notes on the information that the teacher displays on the board. Information will include definitions of the word multiplication, factors, product, array, etc. On each additional page, students will write the multiplication facts starting from 0 to 10. The book will take a week or 2 to complete, as they will only write 1 or 2 fact families each day, starting with the zeros, ones, twos, fives, and tens. This demonstrates a productive way to utilize the teaching strategy, summarizing and note-taking. A second whole group guided instruction activity would consist of the teacher providing students with counting manipulatives and a graphic organizer. The graphic organizer would have a place for students to take notes on the left side of the page and draw a visual representation of the problem on the right side of the page. The teacher would provide example problems on the board, such as 3 times 4 equals. The students would use their manipulatives to physically represent 3 equal groups of 4. After the teacher confirms that the student has correctly demonstrated the problem with manipulatives, they would write 3 times 4 equals 12 on the left side of their organizer and draw 3 equal groups of 4 on the right side. This activity uses non-linguistic representation as well as advanced organizers. After several large group guided instruction activities, the teacher would then move on to guided instruction in small groups. The first activity might consist of the teacher breaking students into groups of 3 and providing each group with a Venn diagram. In order to see how much students understand about multiplication, I would ask them to compare and contrast the operations of addition and multiplication. For example, under addition, students may write, "You can add any 2 numbers together," and under multiplication, they may write repeated addition, or must have equal groups. In the overlapping part of the diagram, students may write both operations share the commutative property. After 10 minutes, the class would share their thoughts. This demonstrates a way to incorporate identifying similarities and differences, and also cooperative learning. A second small group guided instruction activity may consist of dividing students into differentiated learning groups of 3 to 4 students. The teacher would provide each group with a multiplication board. It would look similar to a bingo board. Students would be asked to roll 2 dice and multiply the 2 numbers together. If the product appears on the bingo board, they would place a chip on that number. The first student to get 4 chips in a row would be the winner. Throughout the activity, the teacher would circulate around the room, providing feedback and positive reinforcement to the students. Since the groups are divided into differentiated learning groups, the teacher would spend the majority of her time with the struggling students. Following the large and small group guided instruction, we move on to collaborative learning. Students would pair up and practice their facts using flashcards. This would help prepare students for the weekly time tests and demonstrates the teaching strategy of cooperative learning. A second collaborative activity may include having students pair up to help make a classroom bulletin board. When learning the fact families of the 7s and 8s, students would choose a partner and create an ice cream cone with a given fact. After the ice cream cone is decorated and has the fact in large, legible print, they would add their ice cream to the class bulletin board titled, "We've Got the Scoop on Multiplication." Again, this is a good way to include cooperative learning in the classroom. Throughout the unit on multiplication, students will be assigned a homework practice sheet every night, Monday through Thursday. This is the best way to memorize the facts and be able to recall them automatically. Practice makes perfect. The teacher will collect and return the homework the following day to get a better understanding of which students need additional help and to clear up any misconceptions about a given fact family. This helps demonstrate the instructional strategy of homework and practice and providing feedback. While students are participating in their small groups or collaborating with their peers, the teacher will take this time to call students back to the table one by one to review homework and quiz them with flashcards. At this time, the teacher can also conference with individuals or small groups who are struggling with the concept and provide them with reinforcement activities. The final aspect of the Gradual Release of Responsibility framework includes assessments. We want to use both formative and summative assessments with the students. Formative assessments may include a pretest, teacher observations, the bulletin board activity, homework assignments, weekly time tests on a given fact family, and the multiplication books. The summative assessment would be the chapter or unit test following the unit. In the past, when I have taught these activities while teaching a unit on multiplication, the students have really benefited from the Gradual Release of Responsibility model. I believe that a focus lesson, guided instruction in both large group and small, collaborative learning, homework assignments, and the use of summative and formative assessments is very beneficial to the students. I also believe that incorporating many different instructional learning strategies is also beneficial to the student. Again, some of the instructional strategies used in this lesson were non-linguistic representation, advanced organizers, identifying similarities and differences, cooperative learning, providing feedback, and using cues and questioning to help students succeed. I hope that you have enjoyed this podcast on the Gradual Release of Responsibility teaching framework and have learned some new instructional strategies to incorporate in your classroom. Thank you for listening and have a good day.